Look, I'm going to tell you something that sounds absolutely insane, but stick with me, because what I'm about to share has been buried in ancient monasteries for literally thousands of years, and modern science just figured out why it works. There's this breathing technique, and I know, everyone's talking about breath work these days, but this one is different. This isn't some Instagram wellness trend. This is a protocol that Tibetan monks have been practicing since before the pyramids were built, and researchers are now discovering it does something remarkable to your body at the cellular level. We're talking about slowing down aging, not just feeling younger, but actually changing what's happening inside your cells. And the wild part? It takes about 2 minutes to learn and costs absolutely nothing. Now, before you click away thinking this is too good to be true, let me hit you with some actual science. Your body has this thing called telomeres. Think of them like the plastic tips on shoelaces. Every time your cells divide, these telomeres get shorter. When they get too short, your cells stop working properly. That's aging, plain and simple. Here's what nobody tells you. Your breathing pattern directly affects how fast these telomeres shrink. Fast, shallow breathing, the kind most of us do all day without realizing it, accelerates cellular aging. But deep, controlled breathing? That actually protects your telomeres. We've got peer-reviewed studies showing this now. The monks figured this out thousands of years ago without microscopes or labs. They just paid attention. They noticed that the monks who practiced specific breathing patterns lived longer, had sharper minds well into old age, and seemed to age slower than everyone else. So what exactly is this technique? It's beautifully simple. You're going to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, and breathe out for 8 seconds. That's it. 4, 7, 8. But the way you do it matters, and I'm going to walk you through every detail. The reason this works comes down to your autonomic nervous system. You've got two modes: sympathetic, which is your fight or flight stress response, and parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest healing mode. Most people are stuck in sympathetic mode pretty much all day. Your body is constantly preparing for threats that aren't actually there. This chronic stress state floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones are useful in short bursts, but when they're constantly elevated, they literally age you faster. They damage your DNA, shrink your telomeres, and break down your tissues. It's like driving a car with the gas pedal and brake pressed at the same time. The 478 breathing pattern flips this switch. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system and tells your body it's safe to heal, to repair, to regenerate. And here's the key. The specific timing of 478 isn't random. That particular ratio creates optimal oxygen-carbon dioxide exchange in your lungs and triggers a cascade of beneficial hormonal changes. When you hold your breath for 7 seconds, you're allowing carbon dioxide to build up slightly in your bloodstream. Now, most people think carbon dioxide is just waste, but it's actually crucial for oxygen delivery to your cells. It's called the Bohr effect. Without enough CO2, your cells can't actually absorb the oxygen you're breathing in. So by holding your breath, you're creating the perfect environment for your cells to get the oxygen they desperately need. And when you exhale slowly for 8 seconds, you're completely emptying your lungs, getting rid of stale air that's been sitting at the bottom, and making room for fresh oxygen on the next inhale. But there's more happening during that long exhale. Your vagus nerve, this massive nerve that runs from your brain down through your entire torso, gets activated. This nerve is like the master controller of your parasympathetic nervous system. When it fires, your heart rate slows, your blood pressure drops, your digestion improves, and your body shifts into healing mode. Athletes have known about this for years. They use breath work to recover faster from training. But what the ancient monks understood is that this isn't just about physical recovery. This breathing pattern affects your brain chemistry too. During the hold phase, your brain releases something called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Think of this as fertilizer for your brain cells. It helps new neurons grow and protects existing ones from damage. Low BDNF is linked to depression, anxiety, and cognitive decline. High BDNF is associated with better memory, clearer thinking, and emotional resilience. The monks who practiced this breathing for decades had incredibly sharp minds well into their 80s and 90s. They weren't getting dementia or losing their cognitive abilities like we accept as normal aging. And now we're understanding why. They were literally growing and protecting their brain cells through their breath. Here's what really blows my mind about this whole thing. We spend billions of dollars on anti-aging supplements, creams, treatments, and procedures. We're trying to hack our biology from the outside in. But this breathing technique works from the inside out, and it's been right under our noses for 5,000 years. Let me break down what actually happens in your body when you practice this technique consistently. Within the first week, you'll notice your sleep improves dramatically. That's because you're training your nervous system to actually relax. Most people have forgotten how to do this. They get into bed, but their nervous system is still in high alert mode, scanning for threats, replaying the day's stresses. When you do this breathing before bed, you're essentially telling your body, hey, we're safe now. You can power down. Your brain gets the message and starts producing melatonin. Your core body temperature drops slightly. Your muscles release tension you didn't even know you were holding. But the sleep improvement is just the beginning. After 2 weeks of consistent practice, something interesting starts happening with your inflammation levels. Chronic inflammation is one of the biggest drivers of aging. It's linked to basically every age-related disease: heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, arthritis, you name it. This breathing pattern has been shown to reduce inflammatory markers in the blood. We're talking about real, measurable changes that you can see in lab work. C-reactive protein goes down. Interleukin-6 decreases. These are the molecules that drive inflammation and aging throughout your body. Why does this happen? Remember that parasympathetic nervous system activation we talked about? When your body is in rest and digest mode, it can actually clean house. Your immune system works more efficiently. Your cells can focus on repair instead of defense. It's like finally giving your body permission to do the maintenance work it's been trying to do all along. Now, here's where it gets really interesting for anyone concerned about aging: mitochondria. These are the power plants inside your cells. They take the oxygen you breathe and the food you eat and convert them into energy. But over time, they get damaged and stop working as efficiently. That's a major reason why people feel more tired as they age. This breathing technique actually helps your mitochondria function better. The controlled oxygen and carbon dioxide levels optimize their energy production. You're literally charging up your cellular batteries. People who practice this regularly report having more energy throughout the day, and it's not just a placebo effect. Their cells are genuinely producing energy more efficiently. Let me tell you about something called heart rate variability, or HRV. This is a measurement of the variation in time between your heartbeats. High HRV is a marker of resilience and health. It means your nervous system is flexible and responsive. Low HRV is associated with stress, aging, and increased risk of disease. Elite athletes track their HRV obsessively because it's such a good indicator of recovery and readiness. But here's the thing: you can improve your HRV through breathwork. The 4-7-8 pattern specifically has been shown to increase HRV significantly. Your heart becomes more responsive, more adaptable, more youthful in its function. This matters more than you might think. Your heart health is intimately connected to your overall aging process. A healthy, resilient heart means better blood flow to every organ, including your brain, better nutrient delivery, better waste removal. Your entire system works more efficiently. The monks understood this intuitively. They paid attention to their heartbeat during meditation and breath work. They could feel when their heart rhythm became more coherent, more balanced. Modern technology is just now giving us the tools to measure what they experience directly. Let's talk about stress for a minute, because this is where a lot of aging actually happens. You've probably heard that stress ages you, but do you know the mechanism? When you're stressed, your body releases cortisol. In short bursts, cortisol is fine. It helps you respond to challenges. But chronic elevated cortisol literally shrinks your hippocampus, the memory center of your brain. It suppresses your immune system. It increases belly fat storage. It raises your blood sugar and blood pressure. This breathing technique is one of the fastest ways to lower cortisol. Within minutes of practicing the 4-7-8 pattern, your cortisol levels start to drop. Your body gets the signal that the threat has passed, and it can stop pumping out stress hormones. The fascinating thing about this technique is how it affects different people. I've talked to people in their 70s who swear this breathing practice gave them their life back. They were dealing with chronic pain, insomnia, anxiety, all the things we tend to chalk up to normal aging. Within a month of daily practice, they felt like different people. But here's what really gets me. This isn't just about feeling better. There are actual structural changes happening in your brain. Neuroscientists can now measure this stuff with MRI scans. People who practice controlled breathing techniques show increased gray matter in areas of the brain associated with emotional regulation, memory, and sense of self. Your brain is literally growing new tissue in response to this practice. That's neuroplasticity in action, and it's happening at any age. The old idea that your brain stops developing after 25? Completely wrong. Your brain is constantly remodeling itself based on what you do, and breath work is one of the most powerful tools for positive remodeling. There's this concept in aging research called inflammaging. It's this chronic, low-level inflammation that increases as we get older and drives age-related diseases. What's interesting is that breath work seems to directly counteract this. The deep, slow breathing activates anti-inflammatory pathways in your body. Your spleen actually releases different immune cells when you practice deep breathing. These cells help regulate inflammation throughout your body. It's like you're conducting an orchestra of immune responses, and the breath is your baton. Let me tell you what happens at the cellular level during that 7-second hold. Your cells are basically little factories, and they need a specific environment to work optimally. Too much oxygen is actually stressful to cells. It creates oxidative stress. But too little oxygen, and they can't produce energy. The hold phase creates this perfect balance. During those 7 seconds, your cells are extracting maximum oxygen from your blood while you also allowing a beneficial level of carbon dioxide to build up. This triggers something called the hypercapnic response, which actually makes your blood vessels dilate. Better blood flow means better nutrient delivery to every tissue in your body. Think about your skin for a second. Aging skin isn't just about wrinkles and sun damage. A huge part of skin aging is reduced blood flow. When you improve circulation through breath work, you're literally feeding your skin better. People who practice this consistently often report that their complexion improves. Their skin looks healthier, more vital. That's not magic. That's better cellular nutrition. Now, the 8-second exhale is doing something completely different, but equally important. Long, slow exhales stimulate your vagus nerve more than any other breathing pattern. This nerve connects your brain to your heart, lungs, and digestive system. When you activate it strongly through breathing, you're improving communication between all these systems. Better vagal tone, what it is called when your vagus nerve functions well, is associated with better emotional regulation, reduced inflammation, improved digestion, and even better social bonding. It's wild how interconnected all of this is. The digestive benefits alone are worth paying attention to. So many people deal with gut issues as they age, and a lot of it comes down to stress. When you're in fight or flight mode constantly, your digestive system basically shuts down. It's not a priority when your body thinks you're being chased by a tiger. But activate that vagus nerve through breathing, and suddenly your digestion works the way it's supposed to. Better digestion means better nutrient absorption. Better nutrient absorption means your cells get the raw materials they need to function and repair themselves. It's all connected. You can't separate your breathing from your digestion from your cellular health. It's one integrated system. Here's something that doesn't get talked about enough: the role of nitric oxide in aging. When you breathe through your nose, which is crucial for this technique, your nasal passages produce nitric oxide. This molecule dilates your blood vessels, lowers your blood pressure, and even has antimicrobial properties. People who breathe primarily through their mouth are missing out on this completely. They're not getting that nitric oxide boost, and over time, that contributes to cardiovascular issues and faster aging. The monks were adamant about nose breathing, and now we understand why. They weren't just being picky, they understood something fundamental about how the body works. Let us get into the practical details, because knowing why something works is useless if you don't actually do it. The beauty of this technique is its simplicity, but there are some nuances that make all the difference. First, posture matters more than you think. You want your spine straight, but not rigid. Imagine a string pulling gently from the crown of your head toward the ceiling. This alignment opens up your airways and allows for optimal breath flow. Slouching compresses your lungs and makes deep breathing almost impossible. You can do this sitting or lying down, but I'd recommend starting seated until it becomes second nature. When you're lying down, especially if you're using this to fall asleep, it's easy to drift off before you've really established the pattern. That's fine once you know what you're doing, but initially, stay upright and alert. Place one hand on your chest and one on your belly. This is crucial for beginners. When you breathe in, you should feel your belly expand first, then your chest. Most people do the opposite. They breathe shallowly into their chest, and their belly doesn't move at all. That's stress breathing, and it keeps you in sympathetic mode. Belly breathing, or diaphragmatic breathing, is what babies do naturally. Watch a baby sleep, and you'll see their belly rise and fall with each breath. We all did this once, but stress and life taught us to breathe shallowly and rapidly. This technique helps you relearn what your body already knows. Now, here's the pattern. Close your mouth and breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds. This should be silent and smooth. If you hear your breath, you're forcing it. Let it be gentle, like you're slowly inflating a balloon inside your belly. At the top of the inhale, hold for 7 seconds. Keep your throat soft. Don't clamp down and create tension. Just pause naturally, like there's a brief moment of stillness before the tide goes back out. Then open your mouth slightly and exhale through your mouth for 8 seconds. Make a gentle whooshing sound if that helps you control the exhale. This should feel like a release, like you're letting go of tension you didn't even know you were carrying. That's one cycle. 4-7-8. In the beginning, you might feel a little lightheaded after a few cycles. That's normal. Your body isn't used to this much oxygen and this level of carbon dioxide change. If you feel dizzy, just breathe normally for a minute, then try again. Start with 4 cycles. Just 4 rounds of 4-7-8 breathing. That's less than a minute and a half of your day. Do this twice daily. Once in the morning when you wake up, once at night before bed. That's your baseline practice. After a week, if it feels comfortable, increase to 8 cycles per session. Still just a few minutes of your day, but the cumulative effects are substantial. Some people work up to doing this for 10 or 15 minutes at a time, but there's no need to rush. Even just a few cycles trigger the beneficial physiological responses we've been talking about. Timing is important too. Don't do this right after eating. Give yourself at least an hour after a meal. Your body is focused on digestion, and you want it focused on the breath work instead. The best times are first thing in the morning before breakfast and at night before sleep. Morning practice sets your nervous system up for the day. It's like tuning an instrument before a performance. Night practice helps you wind down and prepares your body for deep, restorative sleep. Here's what most people don't realize. Consistency matters more than intensity with this practice. Doing 4 cycles every single day will give you better results than doing 20 cycles once a week. Your nervous system learns through repetition. You're literally training it to default to a more relaxed, efficient state. Think of it like building a muscle. You wouldn't expect to go to the gym once and see permanent results. The same principle applies here. Each time you practice, you're strengthening the neural pathways that support relaxation and cellular health. After about 3 weeks of daily practice, something shifts. The technique starts to feel automatic. Your body begins to crave it. You'll notice that when stress hits during the day, you naturally take a deeper breath. Your baseline breathing pattern starts to change even when you're not consciously thinking about it. This is the real magic. The practice doesn't just work during the few minutes you reactively doing it. It recalibrates your entire breathing pattern throughout the day. You start defaulting to slower, deeper breaths instead of rapid, shallow ones. That means you're spending more of your day in parasympathetic mode, which means more time in cellular repair and healing mode. Let me address something important. This isn't about becoming some Zen master who never feels stress. Stress is part of life. The goal is resilience, the ability to recover quickly from stress rather than staying stuck in it for hours or days. People with good stress resilience can experience something challenging, have a physiological stress response, and then return to baseline quickly. People with poor resilience stay elevated for long periods, sometimes never fully returning to baseline before the next stressor hits. That chronic elevation is what ages you. This breathing practice builds resilience. It gives your nervous system practice shifting from sympathetic to parasympathetic and back again. That flexibility is what keeps you young. A rigid system is a fragile system. A flexible system adapts and endures. The monks who developed this practice understood something profound about the relationship between breath, mind, and longevity. They saw the breath as a bridge between the conscious and unconscious, between the mind and body. When you change your breath, you change everything downstream from it. Modern science is confirming what they knew experientially. We can now measure the changes in gene expression that occur with regular breathwork practice. Genes involved in inflammation get downregulated. Genes involved in cellular repair get upregulated. You're literally changing which genes are active in your body through something as simple as how you breathe. This challenges the idea that aging is purely genetic and inevitable. Sure, genetics play a role, but gene expression is heavily influenced by lifestyle factors. And breathwork might be the most accessible, cost-effective lifestyle intervention available. Think about what people spend on anti-aging treatments. Thousands of dollars on supplements, procedures, therapies. And here's something that costs nothing, requires no equipment, and has scientific backing showing it affects aging at the cellular level. The return on investment is almost absurd. Let's talk about what happens when you make this a long-term practice, because the real benefits compound over time. In the first month, you're mainly experiencing nervous system regulation. Better sleep, lower stress, improved mood. These are substantial, but they're just the beginning. By month 3, cellular changes are becoming established. Your telomeres are being protected. Your mitochondria are functioning more efficiently. Inflammation markers are consistently lower. These changes don't happen overnight, but they accumulate with regular practice. By 6 months, people often report changes that surprise them. Chronic pain conditions they'd accepted as permanent start to improve. Brain fog lifts. Energy levels stabilize. These aren't necessarily things they were expecting from a breathing practice, but they're natural consequences of improved cellular health. After a year, you're in a completely different physiological state than when you started. Your baseline stress levels are lower. Your heart rate variability is higher. Your immune function is more robust. You're literally aging slower than you were 12 months ago. I've talked to people who have practiced this for years, and they describe it as non-negotiable as brushing their teeth. It's just part of their daily routine, and they can feel the difference when they skip it. Their body has learned what optimal functioning feels like, and it wants to return to that state. There's something important about the cumulative nature of this practice. Each session builds on the previous ones. Your body develops a kind of muscle memory for relaxation. The neural pathways get stronger. The physiological responses become more pronounced and easier to access. This is why the monks practiced for decades. They weren't just maintaining a skill, they were continuously deepening it. Each breath was building on thousands of breaths before it. Their nervous systems became incredibly refined instruments. Now, you don't need to dedicate your life to this to see benefits. Even a few minutes daily creates meaningful change. But understanding the potential depth of the practice can be motivating. There's always another level to explore. Let me address some common challenges people face when starting this practice. The first is simply remembering to do it. Life gets busy, and a new habit can easily fall by the wayside. Set reminders on your phone for the first few weeks. Link it to existing habits. Do it right after you wake up, before your morning coffee, or right after you brush your teeth at night. The second challenge is the mind wandering during practice. You start breathing, and suddenly you're thinking about your grocery list or that conversation from yesterday. This is completely normal. The mind wanders. That's what minds do. When you notice it happening, gently bring your attention back to the breath. That act of noticing and returning is actually part of the practice. Some people struggle with the specific timing at first. Counting to 7 while holding your breath feels awkward. That's okay. You can count faster or slower as needed. The key is maintaining the ratio. The hold should be longer than the inhale, and the exhale should be longer than the hold. As you get more comfortable, you'll find your natural rhythm. Others worry they're not doing it perfectly. Let me be clear, there's no perfect. Your breath might be shaky sometimes. You might lose count. You might get distracted. All of that is part of being human. The practice isn't about perfection. It's about showing up and breathing with intention. Here's what I find fascinating about the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern science with this technique. The monks didn't have peer-reviewed studies or fancy equipment. They had observation, experimentation, and thousands of years of accumulated knowledge passed down through generations. They noticed that certain breathing patterns created certain effects. They refined these patterns over centuries. They developed precise instructions for posture, timing, and mental focus. And they did all of this without understanding the biochemical mechanisms we can now measure. This tells us something important. The body has an innate wisdom that we can access through attention and practice. We don't need to understand every mechanism for something to work. The monks proved that. But now that we do understand the mechanisms, we can appreciate just how sophisticated their techniques were. The 4-7-8 pattern isn't random. It's the result of thousands of years of refinement. The monks were basically doing empirical research without calling it that. They were testing, observing, and optimizing based on results. Modern science has added a layer of understanding, but the practice itself remains unchanged. That's remarkable when you think about it. A technique developed 5,000 years ago holds up perfectly under modern scientific scrutiny. It's not folklore or superstition. It's practical physiology that we can now explain with molecular biology. This convergence of ancient and modern knowledge is powerful. It validates what wisdom traditions have been teaching while also making the practice accessible to people who need scientific explanations to trust something. You can approach this from either direction and arrive at the same place. This works. Let us dive deeper into the sleep benefits because this is where a lot of people first notice the effects. Sleep quality declines with age for most people. It takes longer to fall asleep, you wake up more during the night, and you spend less time in deep sleep. This contributes significantly to aging because deep sleep is when your body does most of its repair work. The 4-7-8 breathing pattern is particularly effective as a sleep aid because it triggers a specific sequence of physiological events. The long exhale activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which signals to your body that it's safe to sleep. Your heart rate slows, your blood pressure drops, your muscles relax. At the same time, the controlled breathing pattern occupies your conscious mind just enough to prevent it from spinning through thoughts and worries. It gives your mind something to focus on that's rhythmic and calming. This is why counting sheep supposedly works. It's not about the sheep. It's about giving your mind a simple, repetitive task that allows deeper brain regions to initiate sleep. But the 4-7-8 pattern is more sophisticated than counting sheep because it's also creating physiological changes that make sleep easier. You're not just distracting your mind. You're actively shifting your body into a state conducive to sleep. People report falling asleep faster, staying asleep longer, and waking up feeling more refreshed. This isn't just subjective. Sleep studies show that regular breathwork practice improves sleep architecture. You spend more time in deep sleep and REM sleep, the stages where memory consolidation and physical repair happen. Better sleep means better cellular repair. During deep sleep, your body releases growth hormone, which stimulates tissue repair and regeneration. Your brain clears out metabolic waste products that accumulate during the day. Your immune system is strengthened. All of these processes are crucial for healthy aging. One of the most overlooked aspects of this practice is its effect on emotional regulation. As we age, many people notice they become more reactive, more easily frustrated, less patient. We tend to chalk this up to getting older or being set in our ways, but there's a physiological component. Chronic stress and poor nervous system regulation make it harder to manage emotions. When you're already running at a high baseline of stress, it doesn't take much to push you over the edge into anger or anxiety. It's like a cup that's already almost full. One more drop and it overflows. The 4-7-8 breathing practice lowers that baseline. Your cup isn't constantly full to the brim. When challenging situations arise, you have more capacity to handle them without overflowing into intense emotional reactions. This happens through several mechanisms. First, the regular parasympathetic activation strengthens your vagus nerve, which is directly involved in emotional regulation. Better vagal tone means better ability to modulate your emotional responses. Second, the practice increases activity in your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thought and emotional control. When you're stressed, blood flow shifts away from the prefrontal cortex toward more primitive brain regions involved in survival. Regular breath work helps maintain prefrontal cortex function even under stress. Third, by reducing overall inflammation and cortisol levels, the practice removes some of the physiological drivers of emotional reactivity. High cortisol makes you irritable. Chronic inflammation affects neurotransmitter production and can contribute to mood disorders. Lower these factors, and emotional regulation becomes easier. The monks understood this intuitively. They knew that controlling the breath helped control the mind and emotions. They experienced it directly in their meditation practice. Modern neuroscience is now explaining the mechanisms behind what they observed. There's also an interesting connection between breath work and pain perception. Pain isn't just a simple signal from damaged tissue. It's a complex experience that involves physical sensation, emotional response, and cognitive interpretation. Your breathing pattern influences all three aspects. Slow, Controlled breathing activates descending pain inhibitory pathways in your brain and spinal cord. These are natural pain relief systems your body has built in. When you breathe slowly and deeply, you're essentially turning up the volume on your body's own pain medication. The emotional component of pain is also influenced by breathing. Pain feels worse when you're anxious or stressed. By calming your nervous system through breath work, you reduce the emotional amplification of pain signals. The pain might still be there, but it's less distressing, more manageable. And the cognitive interpretation changes too. When you're focused on your breath, you're not ruminating about the pain, catastrophizing about what it means, or getting caught in pain-related anxiety. The breath becomes an anchor that keeps you from spiraling into unhelpful thought patterns. People with chronic pain who practice this technique regularly often report that while the pain doesn't completely disappear, their relationship to it changes. It becomes less dominating, less all-consuming. They have more moments where they're not thinking about it. And those pain-free moments add up to a significantly better quality of life. Let's talk about the cardiovascular benefits because this is crucial for healthy aging. Heart disease is still the leading cause of death in most developed countries, and a lot of it is related to chronic stress and poor lifestyle habits. Your breathing pattern directly affects your heart. Fast, shallow breathing increases heart rate and blood pressure. It keeps your cardiovascular system in a state of mild emergency. Deep, slow breathing does the opposite. It allows your heart to slow down and your blood vessels to relax. The 7-second hold in the 4-7-8 pattern is particularly beneficial for your heart. During this brief pause, your heart rate variability increases. Remember, higher HRV is a marker of cardiovascular health and overall resilience. You're essentially training your heart to be more flexible and responsive. The long exhale creates what's called respiratory sinus arrhythmia, a natural, healthy variation in heart rate that occurs with breathing. Your heart rate speeds up slightly on the inhale and slows down on the exhale. This variation is a sign of a healthy, adaptable cardiovascular system. People who practice this technique regularly often see improvements in their resting heart rate and blood pressure. These aren't dramatic drops, but even small improvements in these metrics are associated with significantly reduced cardiovascular risk over time. There's also an interesting effect on blood vessel function. The nitric oxide produced during nose breathing helps keep your blood vessels flexible and responsive. Stiff, inflexible blood vessels are a major risk factor for heart disease and stroke. Anything that keeps them supple and responsive is protective. The reduction in inflammation we talked about earlier also benefits your heart directly. Inflammation in blood vessel walls is a key driver of atherosclerosis, the buildup of plaque that can lead to heart attacks and strokes. Lower inflammation means healthier blood vessels. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Does this actually slow aging, or does it just make you feel better? The answer is both, and they're not as separate as you might think. Feeling better, having more energy, sleeping well, being less stressed, allows you to make better choices. You're more likely to exercise, eat well, maintain social connections, and engage in other health-promoting behaviors. So there's an indirect effect on aging through improved overall lifestyle. But there are also direct effects at the cellular level. The telomere protection we discussed earlier is real. The reduction in oxidative stress is measurable. The improvements in mitochondrial function are significant. These are all biological markers of aging that are being positively influenced by the practice. There's also emerging research on something called epigenetic aging. Your genes don't change, but which genes are active and how they're expressed can change based on lifestyle factors. Breathwork has been shown to influence gene expression in ways that are associated with slower biological aging. The challenge with studying aging is that it happens slowly. You can't do a one-year study and definitively say someone is aging slower. But we can measure biomarkers of aging, and those biomarkers consistently improve with regular breathwork practice. The monks who inspired this practice regularly lived into their 90s and 100s with remarkable cognitive and physical function. That's anecdotal, not scientific proof, but it's compelling. These were people who made breath control a central part of their daily life, and they experienced remarkable longevity. I want to address some of the skepticism around breath work because it's understandable. We live in a culture that tends to trust pills and procedures more than simple practices. If something is free and easy, we assume it can't be that powerful. But consider this. Pharmaceutical companies spend billions developing drugs that target the same pathways this breathing technique activates naturally. Anti-anxiety medications work on the parasympathetic nervous system. Blood pressure medications dilate blood vessels. Anti-inflammatory drugs reduce inflammatory markers. This breathing pattern does all of those things simultaneously without side effects or cost. The reason it's not more widely prescribed is probably that there's no money in it. You can't patent a breathing technique. There's no revenue stream for pharmaceutical companies or medical device makers. The research exists, but it's not promoted the way new drugs are. Studies on breathwork don't have multi-million-dollar marketing budgets behind them. The scientists doing this work are often operating on shoestring budgets because there's no financial incentive for corporations to fund the research. That doesn't make it less valid. If anything, it makes it more so. This knowledge has persisted for 5,000 years not because of marketing, but because it works. People teach it to others because they experience the benefits directly. Now, let's get practical about integrating this into a busy life. I know what you're thinking. This sounds great, but I barely have time to eat breakfast, let alone sit and breathe for 10 minutes. Fair point. But here's the thing, you're breathing anyway. This isn't adding something completely new to your day. It's just changing how you breathe for a few minutes. You can do this while sitting in your car before work, while waiting for your coffee to brew, before a meeting, during a work break. The morning practice can happen before you even get out of bed. Set your alarm 4 minutes earlier than usual. When it goes off, don't reach for your phone. Instead, sit up in bed and do 8 cycles of 4-7-8 breathing. That's it. You've completed your morning practice before your feet hit the floor. The evening practice can be part of your wind-down routine. Instead of scrolling on your phone before bed, do your breathing practice. The blue light from screens suppresses melatonin and makes sleep harder anyway. Swap screen time for breath time, and you'll sleep better immediately. Once you've established the basic practice, you can start using it strategically throughout the day. Before a difficult conversation, do a few cycles to center yourself. When you feel stress rising, use it as a reset button. Before making an important decision, use it to clear your mind. This is where the practice becomes truly powerful, not just as a scheduled morning and evening routine, but as a tool you can deploy anytime you need it. It's like having a reset button you can press whenever life gets overwhelming. The beauty is that after a few weeks of regular practice, you can do a shortened version anywhere. 1 or 2 cycles of 4-7-8 breathing takes less than 30 seconds and can immediately shift your state. You can do this in a meeting, at a stoplight, in line at the grocery store. Nobody even knows you're doing it. Let's talk about the mental clarity aspect because this is something almost everyone who practices this notices. That fog that settles over your thinking as you age, the difficulty focusing, the sense that your mind isn't as sharp as it used to be. Breathwork addresses this directly. Your brain is about 2% of your body weight, but uses 20% of your oxygen. When you're breathing shallowly all day, your brain isn't getting optimal oxygenation. It's functioning, but not at its best. It's like trying to run your computer on low battery. Everything works, but it's sluggish. The 4-7-8 pattern ensures your brain gets the oxygen it needs. The hold phase optimizes oxygen delivery. The long exhale clears out carbon dioxide that can build up and make you feel foggy. After just a few cycles, most people notice their thinking becomes clearer. But it's more than just oxygen. The practice also affects neurotransmitter production. Deep breathing increases GABA, your brain's primary calming neurotransmitter. Low GABA is associated with anxiety and racing thoughts. Higher GABA means a calmer, clearer mind. The meditation-like aspect of focusing on your breath also strengthens your attention muscles. Every time you notice your mind wandering and bring it back to the breath, you're practicing concentration. This carries over into the rest of your life. Your ability to focus improves across the board. People report being able to think more clearly, make decisions more easily, and remember things better after regular breathwork practice. These aren't subjective feelings. Cognitive testing shows measurable improvements in attention, memory, and processing speed. The stress reduction component plays a role too. When you're constantly stressed, your cognitive resources are partially occupied with worry and threat monitoring. You're trying to think clearly while part of your brain is scanning for danger. Calm your nervous system through breath work, and you free up those cognitive resources for actual thinking. There's also an interesting connection to creativity. Many people notice that insights and ideas come more easily during or after breathwork practice. This makes sense from a neuroscience perspective. The relaxed, alert state created by the practice is ideal for creative thinking. When you're stressed, your thinking becomes narrow and rigid. You fall back on familiar patterns and solutions. When you're relaxed but alert, your mind can make novel connections and see new possibilities. The monks used breath work to access altered states of consciousness where insight and wisdom could emerge. You don't need to be seeking enlightenment to benefit from this. Even just using the practice to clear your head before brainstorming or problem solving can lead to better solutions. Your mind works better when it's not running on stress and anxiety. Let me share something important about the cumulative nature of cellular repair. When you practice this breathing technique, you're not just getting a temporary benefit during those few minutes. You're initiating repair processes that continue for hours afterward. Think of it like exercise. When you lift weights, you're not building muscle during the workout itself. You're creating micro-damage to muscle fibers, and then your body repairs that damage over the next hours and days, building the muscle back stronger. The workout triggers the process, but the adaptation happens afterward. Similarly, the breathing practice triggers cellular repair and regeneration processes that continue long after you've finished. Your mitochondria continue functioning more efficiently. Your inflammatory markers stay lower. Your nervous system maintains a more balanced state. This is why consistency matters so much. Each practice session builds on the previous ones. The effects compound. Your baseline keeps improving. After months of practice, your normal state is what your stress state used to be. You've fundamentally recalibrated your system. The monks understood this deep in their bones. They didn't practice breath work as an occasional stress relief technique. It was woven into the fabric of their daily lives. They practiced multiple times per day, every day, for decades. The results spoke for themselves in their longevity and vitality. Now, you don't need to match that level of dedication to see benefits. Even the minimal practice of twice daily creates meaningful change. But understanding the potential depth of the practice can be inspiring. There's always room to go deeper if you choose. Let's address what happens if you miss a day. Life happens. You get sick, you travel, you're dealing with a crisis. You're not going to practice every single day forever. That's reality. And it's fine. The practice is forgiving. Missing a day doesn't erase your progress. Your nervous system doesn't forget what you've taught it. You might notice you're a bit more stressed or sleep slightly less well that night, but the cumulative benefits remain. The key is getting back to it. Don't let one missed day turn into a week, then a month, then abandoning the practice entirely. Treat it like brushing your teeth. You wouldn't stop brushing forever because you missed it one night. Same principle here. If you've been practicing regularly and then take a break, you'll notice the contrast. Your stress levels creep back up. Sleep becomes less reliable. That mental clarity fades a bit. Your body remembers what optimal feels like and will remind you it's missing the practice. Use that feedback as motivation to return to the practice rather than as judgment for having paused. The practice is always there waiting for you. You can't fail at breathwork. You can only choose whether or not to do it. Here's something that doesn't get discussed enough: the social and relational benefits of better nervous system regulation. When you're less stressed and reactive, you show up differently in your relationships. You're more patient, more present, more able to listen without immediately defending or problem solving. Your partner, your kids, your friends, they all benefit from you being more regulated. Stress is contagious, but so is calm. When you're centered and grounded, it creates space for others to relax too. You become a calming presence rather than adding to the collective anxiety. This matters more as we age. Relationships are one of the strongest predictors of longevity and quality of life. People with strong social connections live longer and stay healthier. But maintaining those connections requires emotional regulation and presence, both of which are supported by practices like this. The monks practiced in community. They understood that individual practice supported collective well-being. When everyone in the monastery was practicing breath work and meditation, the whole environment became more conducive to peace and clarity. You might not live in a monastery, but the principle applies. Your state affects those around you. By managing your own nervous system through breath work, you're not just helping yourself, you're contributing to the well-being of everyone you interact with. There's also an interesting effect on empathy and compassion. When you're chronically stressed, you have less capacity for empathy. Your system is focused on your own survival. and there's not much bandwidth left for tuning into others' experiences. Regular breathwork practice expands your capacity for empathy. The parasympathetic activation creates a physiological state that supports connection and care. You have more emotional resources available to extend to others. This shows up in subtle ways. Being more patient with a frustrated customer service representative, taking time to really listen to a friend's problem, noticing when someone needs help. These small moments of connection and kindness add up to a richer, more meaningful life. The monks cultivated compassion as a central practice, and they used breath work as a foundation. They understood that you can't genuinely extend compassion to others when your own system is dysregulated. You have to put on your own oxygen mask first, so to speak. By practicing this breathing technique, you're essentially putting on your oxygen mask. You're creating the physiological foundation for showing up as your best self in relationships and interactions. Let's dive into what happens at the hormonal level, because this is fascinating. Your breath directly influences your endocrine system, the collection of glands that produce hormones regulating everything from metabolism to mood to sleep. When you're stressed, your adrenal glands pump out cortisol and adrenaline. We've talked about this, but there's a whole cascade of other hormonal changes that happen with chronic stress. Your thyroid function can become impaired. Sex hormone production decreases. Growth hormone release is suppressed. All of these hormonal changes contribute to what we experience as aging. Lower sex hormones mean decreased muscle mass and bone density. Impaired thyroid function means sluggish metabolism and low energy. Reduced growth hormone means less tissue repair and regeneration. The 4-7-8 breathing pattern helps rebalance this entire system. By reducing stress and activating your parasympathetic nervous system, you're sending signals to your endocrine glands that it's safe to function normally again. Cortisol levels normalize. Your thyroid can produce hormones at optimal levels. Growth hormone release improves, especially if you practice before bed, since growth hormone is primarily released during deep sleep. There's also an effect on insulin sensitivity. Chronic stress and elevated cortisol contribute to insulin resistance, which is a stepping stone to type 2 diabetes and accelerated aging. Breath work has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity, helping your body regulate blood sugar more effectively. Better blood sugar regulation means more stable energy throughout the day. No more mid-afternoon crashes. No more mood swings related to blood sugar spikes and drops. Your energy becomes more consistent and reliable. The hormonal benefits extend to appetite regulation too. Stress eating is a real phenomenon driven by cortisol's effect on hunger hormones. When you're chronically stressed, you're more likely to crave high-calorie comfort foods, and you're more likely to store those calories as belly fat. By reducing stress through breath work, you're helping normalize your hunger hormones, leptin and ghrelin. Your appetite becomes more aligned with your actual nutritional needs rather than being driven by stress and emotional factors. People often notice they make better food choices after starting a regular breathwork practice. It's not that the breathing technique directly makes you choose salad over pizza. It's that when your stress levels are lower and your hormones are balanced, you're more capable of making conscious choices aligned with your goals. This is part of the broader theme. Breathwork doesn't solve your life problems directly. It creates the physiological foundation that makes it easier for you to solve them yourself. It clears the fog, reduces the noise, and gives you access to your own wisdom and capability. Now let's talk about immune function, because this is critical for healthy aging. Your immune system naturally becomes less efficient as you age. It's called immunosenescence. This is why older adults are more susceptible to infections and why vaccines become less effective with age. But here's what most people don't realize. Stress dramatically accelerates immune aging. Chronic stress suppresses immune function, makes you more vulnerable to illness, and slows healing and recovery. Your immune system can't function optimally when it's constantly being told the body is under threat. The 4-7-8 breathing practice supports immune function through multiple pathways. First, by reducing stress and cortisol, you're removing a major suppressor of immune activity. Your immune cells can function properly when they're not being inhibited by stress hormones. Second, the deep breathing improves lymphatic circulation. Your lymphatic system is like your body's sewage system. It collects cellular waste and delivers it to your lymph nodes for processing. Unlike your blood, which has your heart to pump it, your lymph only moves through muscular contractions and breathing. Deep, diaphragmatic breathing literally pumps your lymphatic system. Each full breath helps move lymph fluid through your body, supporting waste removal and immune surveillance. Shallow breathing means sluggish lymphatic flow, which means less efficient immune function. Third, the practice affects the balance of your immune system. Your immune system has different modes: inflammatory responses for fighting infections and healing injuries, and anti-inflammatory responses for preventing overreaction. Chronic stress pushes the system toward excessive inflammation. Regular breath work helps rebalance this. The anti-inflammatory effects we've discussed don't mean suppressing your immune system. They mean bringing it back into balance so it responds appropriately to real threats without creating unnecessary inflammation that damages your own tissues. People who practice breath work regularly often notice they get sick less often. When they do get sick, they recover faster. This makes sense when you understand the immune benefits. You're essentially giving your immune system the physiological environment it needs to function at its best. There's also an interesting connection to autoimmune conditions. While I'm not suggesting breath work cures autoimmune disease, many people with these conditions report reduced symptoms with regular practice. The stress reduction and immune rebalancing seem to calm down the overactive immune responses that drive these conditions. Let's address the elephant in the room that we haven't fully explored yet. Why isn't everyone doing this? If a simple breathing technique can slow aging, improve health, and enhance quality of life, why isn't it as common as brushing your teeth? Part of it is cultural. We live in a society that values complexity and technology. We trust things that are expensive and complicated. A free, simple practice that you can do anywhere doesn't fit our narrative about what effective interventions look like. Part of it is economic. As I mentioned earlier, there's no profit in teaching people to breathe. The wellness industry has figured out how to monetize breath work by packaging it into apps, classes, and retreats. But the basic practice itself generates no revenue for anyone. Part of it is that the benefits are subtle and cumulative. You won't feel dramatically different after one session. The magic is in the consistency over time. We're conditioned to want quick fixes and immediate results. A practice that requires daily commitment for weeks before you really notice the benefits is a tough sell in our instant gratification culture. But here's what I want you to understand. Simple doesn't mean ineffective. Free doesn't mean worthless. The most powerful interventions are often the simplest. They work with your body's natural healing and regulatory systems rather than trying to override them. Think about sleep. Nothing complicated about it. You just lie down and close your eyes. But adequate sleep is more powerful for health and longevity than most medical interventions. Same principle with breath work. It's basic, but it's fundamental. The monks figured this out thousands of years ago because they had something modern society often lacks: patience and observation. They practiced consistently over years and decades. They paid attention to subtle changes. They trusted the process even when results weren't immediately obvious. You have the opportunity to tap into that same wisdom and combine it with modern scientific understanding. You know why it works at a cellular level. You can measure the changes if you want to track biomarkers. But ultimately, the practice remains simple. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. That simplicity is its strength, not its weakness. You don't need any prerequisites. You don't need to be flexible or fit or have any particular skills. If you can breathe, you can do this practice. And if you do it consistently, you will experience benefits. The question isn't whether it works. The science and the centuries of practical application prove it does. The question is whether you'll actually do it. Whether you'll commit to a few minutes daily for something that seems almost too simple to be effective. I want to share something about the meditative quality of this practice because it's important even if you're not interested in meditation per se. When you're counting and controlling your breath, your mind has to focus. It can't simultaneously spin through its usual anxiety loops and maintain the breathing pattern. This gives you a break from your thoughts. For many people, their mind is constantly chattering, worrying about the future, replaying the past, criticizing themselves, planning, analyzing. That constant mental activity is exhausting and contributes to stress and aging. The breath becomes an anchor. When you notice your mind has wandered, which it will, constantly at first, you gently bring your attention back to counting and breathing. This isn't a failure, it's the practice. The mind wanders, you notice, you return. Over and over. This simple act of noticing and returning strengthens your mindfulness muscle. You become more aware of your thoughts and less identified with them. You start to see that thoughts are just mental events, not facts or commands you must obey. This shift in your relationship with your thoughts has profound implications for stress and well-being. When you're lost in thought, every worry feels real and urgent. When you can observe your thoughts with some distance, you have choice about how to respond to them. The monks spent lifetimes developing this capacity through meditation. The breathing practice is a gateway into that same territory. You're not trying to stop thinking. That's impossible and not the goal. You're learning to be less dominated by your thoughts, to have some space between stimulus and response. This mental space is where wisdom and choice live. When something stressful happens and there's space before your reaction, you can respond skillfully rather than reflexively. You can choose the story you tell yourself about what's happening rather than being swept away by automatic negative interpretations. This is anti-aging at the psychological level. Reactivity, rigidity, and getting stuck in negative thought patterns all contribute to stress and poor health. Developing the capacity to pause, observe, and choose your response supports both mental health and physical longevity. The beautiful thing is that this capacity develops naturally through the breathing practice. You're not trying to become some enlightened being. You're just breathing in a specific pattern and noticing when your mind wanders. The psychological benefits emerge as a side effect. Let's talk about energy management, because this is something that changes dramatically with age. Most people notice they have less energy as they get older. They wake up tired, need more coffee to get through the day, crash in the afternoon, and have little left for evening activities. We tend to accept this as inevitable aging, but a lot of it is actually about how your body manages energy. Your mitochondria become less efficient. Your stress hormones stay elevated, constantly draining your reserves. Your sleep quality decreases, so you're not recharging fully. The 478 breathing practice addresses all of these factors. Better mitochondrial function means more efficient energy production. Lower stress means less constant energy drain. Improved sleep means better recharging. The cumulative effect is more consistent, reliable energy throughout the day. But it's not just about having more energy. It's about having the right kind of energy. Stress-driven energy is jittery and unsustainable. It's running on adrenaline and cortisol, which works in the short term but leads to crashes and burnout. The energy you get from good nervous system regulation is steady and sustainable. It's like the difference between burning kindling and burning hardwood. The kindling flames up fast and burns out quickly. The hardwood provides steady, long-lasting heat. People who practice breathwork regularly report feeling more energized but also more grounded. They have energy when they need it for focused work or physical activity, but they can also relax completely when it's time to rest. Their system is flexible and responsive rather than stuck in one gear. This energy flexibility is a marker of health and resilience. Young, healthy systems can ramp up when needed and calm down when appropriate. Aging and chronic stress reduce this flexibility. You're either tired or wired, with little in between. The breathing practice restores that flexibility. It trains your nervous system to move smoothly between activation and relaxation. This makes your energy more reliable and sustainable over the long term. There's also something to be said for mental energy specifically. Many people have physical energy but feel mentally exhausted. Decision fatigue, information overload, and constant stimulation drain mental resources even when you're physically rested. The mental clarity and calm that comes from breathwork practice helps manage mental energy better. Your mind works more efficiently when it's not running constant stress subroutines in the background. You can think clearly without it being effortful. I want to address something that might seem esoteric but is actually quite practical: the connection between breath and consciousness. The monks who developed this practice understood that breath is the bridge between body and mind, between the conscious and unconscious. When you consciously control your breath, you're influencing processes that normally run automatically. Your autonomic nervous system, as the name suggests, is supposed to be automatic. But breath is the one part you can consciously control, and when you do, you can influence everything downstream. This isn't mystical. It's practical neurophysiology. Your breathing pattern sends signals to your brain about your current state. Fast, shallow breathing says danger. Slow, deep breathing says safety. Your brain responds accordingly, triggering cascades of hormonal and neural changes. By consciously choosing a breathing pattern, You're essentially hacking into your automatic systems and sending new instructions. You're overriding the default stress response and installing a different program. The monks used this to access altered states of consciousness. They could slow their metabolism, lower their body temperature, and enter deep meditative states through breath control. Modern science has studied these monks and confirmed these abilities. You're not necessarily trying to sit naked on a mountaintop in freezing temperatures, but the principle applies to everyday life. You can shift your state through conscious breathing. Anxious before a presentation? A few cycles of 4-7-8 breathing can calm your system. Can't focus on a difficult task? The breathing practice clears your mind. This is empowering. You have a tool that works in minutes, requires nothing external, and gives you some measure of control over your physiological and mental state. In a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, this is valuable. The long-term practice of consciously working with your breath also develops what you might call body wisdom. You become more attuned to your internal state. You notice when stress is building before it becomes overwhelming. You recognize the early signs of fatigue or tension. This awareness allows for earlier intervention. Instead of waiting until you're completely burned out to rest, you notice subtle fatigue and take a break. Instead of letting stress compound all day, you catch it early and do some breath work to reset. The monks lived in close relationship with their bodies and minds. They paid attention to subtle internal states that most modern people never notice because we're so externally focused. The breathing practice is a way to develop that same internal awareness without becoming a monk. Let's bring this all together and talk about what sustainable practice actually looks like. Because knowing the benefits and the technique is useless if you don't actually integrate this into your life in a sustainable way. Start small. Commit to just 2 minutes twice a day. That's 4 cycles in the morning, for cycles at night. Less than 5 minutes total daily. Anyone can find 5 minutes. You spend more time than that scrolling social media or waiting for your coffee to brew. Set yourself up for success. Link the practice to existing habits. Do it right after you wake up while still in bed. Do it after brushing your teeth at night. Make it part of your routine rather than an additional task you have to remember. Track it for the first month. Put a check mark on a calendar each day you practice. This provides visual feedback and helps establish the habit. After about 3 weeks, it starts to feel automatic. You'll miss it when you skip it. Be patient with results. You might feel something after the first session, or you might not notice much for a week or 2. Trust the process. The cellular and neurological changes are happening whether you feel them immediately or not. Use it strategically once it's established. The scheduled morning and evening practice is your foundation, but start deploying the technique whenever you need it. Stressed at work? Quick breathwork reset. Can't sleep? 4-7-8 breathing is more effective than most sleep aids and has no side effects. Consider deepening the practice over time. Once twice daily is completely habitual, maybe add a longer session once or twice a week. 10 or 15 minutes of uninterrupted breath work can create even deeper states of relaxation and restoration. But don't make it complicated. The power is in the consistency of the basic practice, not in accumulating advanced techniques or turning it into a big production. Simple, regular, sustainable, that's the formula. Here's the bottom line. You're aging right now, in this moment. Your cells are dividing, your telomeres are shortening, your systems are slowly declining. That's the default program. But you have the ability to influence that program through simple lifestyle practices, and breath work is one of the most powerful. 5,000 years ago, monks in Tibet figured out that controlling the breath could slow aging and extend healthy lifespan. They didn't have peer-reviewed studies or biomarker testing. They just practiced and observed and refined the techniques over generations. Now we have the science to explain why their techniques work. We can measure the changes in gene expression, inflammatory markers, telomere length, and nervous system function. The ancient wisdom and modern science point in the same direction. This works. The question is whether you'll actually do it. Not just today after reading this, but tomorrow and next week and next month. Because that's where the magic is, in the accumulation of daily practice over time. Your breath is happening anyway. 20,000 breaths per day, most of them unconscious and suboptimal. What if you made just a few dozen of those breaths conscious and intentional? What if you spent less than 1% of your breathing time on this practice? The monks knew something profound. The breath is life. How you breathe determines how you live and how you age. You can keep breathing the way you've always breathed and accept the trajectory you're on. Or you can learn from 5,000 years of wisdom and modern science and breathe yourself toward a longer, healthier, more vital life. The technique is simple. The commitment is small. The benefits are substantial. Everything you need is already inside you, flowing in and out with every breath. The question is whether you'll harness it. There's something I need to tell you about the resistance you'll likely feel to maintaining this practice. It's predictable and almost everyone experiences it, so knowing about it in advance can help you navigate through it. In the first few days, you'll probably feel motivated. The novelty is exciting. You're curious about the benefits. You remember to do it because it's fresh in your mind. This honeymoon phase is easy. Then around day 5 or 6, resistance appears. You'll forget to do it in the morning. You'll be too tired at night. Your brain will generate very convincing reasons why today isn't a good day to practice. This is completely normal, and it's actually a sign that something important is happening. Your nervous system has been running on a specific program for years or decades. You're introducing a new program, and the old system resists change even when the change is beneficial. It's like when you start exercising after being sedentary. Your body protests even though movement is exactly what it needs. The trick is to expect this resistance and not let it mean anything about you or the practice. It's not that you're weak-willed or that the practice isn't working. It's just your system's default response to change. Push through this phase, and you get to the other side where the practice becomes genuinely easy and natural. This resistance phase usually lasts about 2 weeks. If you can maintain consistency through those 2 weeks, something shifts. The practice stops feeling like something you're forcing yourself to do and starts feeling like something you want to do. Your body begins to crave the reset that breath work provides. Think about it like this. Right now, your body is accustomed to operating in a certain state, probably elevated stress, shallow breathing, chronic tension. That state is familiar. When you practice deep breathing, you're introducing a different state. At first, this feels foreign, maybe even slightly uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar. But give it time, and the new state becomes familiar. Your body remembers what it's like to be genuinely relaxed. It starts to prefer this state. Eventually, the stress state becomes the one that feels wrong, and your system naturally wants to return to the calm state you've been cultivating through practice. This is real neuroplasticity in action. You're rewiring your nervous system's default settings. But rewiring takes time and repetition. You wouldn't expect to learn a new language or instrument in a week. Same principle applies here. You're teaching your nervous system a new way of operating. The monks understood this deeply. They talked about practice in terms of years and decades, not days and weeks. They knew that profound transformation happens slowly through consistent daily effort. They weren't in a hurry because they understood that some things simply require time. Now, you'll likely see benefits much faster than the monk's timeline suggests. But having a long-term perspective helps. You're not just trying to feel better this week. You're installing new patterns that will serve you for the rest of your life. That's worth some patience and persistence. Let me share something about the relationship between breath work and physical exercise because they're complementary in interesting ways. Exercise is clearly beneficial for healthy aging. We have mountains of evidence for this. But breath work amplifies the benefits of exercise and makes recovery faster and more complete. When you exercise, you're creating controlled stress on your body. Your muscles, cardiovascular system, and metabolism all have to adapt to meet the demands you're placing on them. That adaptation is what makes you stronger and fitter. But adaptation happens during recovery, not during the exercise itself. This is where breath work comes in. The breathing practice activates all those recovery and repair systems we've been discussing. When you combine regular exercise with regular breath work, you're optimizing both the stress and the recovery phases of the adaptation cycle. Athletes have figured this out. Elite performers often incorporate breath work into their training specifically to enhance recovery. They're not doing it for stress relief or meditation. They're doing it because it measurably improves their physical performance by accelerating recovery. But you don't need to be an athlete to benefit from this. If you walk, run, lift weights, do yoga, or engage in any form of physical activity, adding breath work to your routine will help you recover better and potentially reduce injury risk. There's also a direct effect during exercise itself. Many people unknowingly hold their breath or breathe inefficiently during physical activity. Learning to control your breath through the 4-7-8 practice carries over into better breathing patterns during exercise. Better breathing during exercise means better oxygen delivery to working muscles, more efficient energy production, and reduced perception of effort. The same workout feels easier when you're breathing well. The recovery benefits extend beyond just physical recovery too. Exercise is stressful to your nervous system, not just your muscles. Intense workouts can leave you feeling wired and make it hard to sleep that night. Doing breath work after exercising helps shift your nervous system from the activated state of exercise back into recovery mode. This is particularly important for people who exercise in the evening. If you work out late and then try to go to bed, your system might still be too activated to sleep well. 20 minutes of breath work after your workout can bridge that gap, allowing you to get the benefits of evening exercise without sacrificing sleep quality. There's also an interesting effect on exercise consistency. One of the biggest barriers to regular exercise is that it feels like another stressor on an already stressful life. When your baseline stress is high, the thought of adding exercise stress on top of it feels overwhelming. By lowering your baseline stress through daily breath work, you create more capacity for the beneficial stress of exercise. It stops feeling like too much and starts feeling manageable, even enjoyable. People often find that starting a breathwork practice makes it easier to maintain an exercise routine. Now I want to talk about something that might sound strange at first: the idea that how you breathe affects how you think, and how you think affects how you age. There's a bidirectional relationship between your breathing pattern and your mental patterns, and it has real implications for longevity. When you're caught in anxious or negative thinking, your breathing automatically becomes faster and shallower. But the reverse is also true. When your breathing is fast and shallow, it triggers and reinforces anxious thinking. It's a feedback loop that can keep you stuck in stress. The monks who developed breathwork techniques understood this intimately. They knew that controlling the breath was a way to influence the mind. When you slow and deepen your breath, anxious and negative thoughts naturally quiet down. It's not that you're suppressing them. They just arise less frequently and have less power when they do appear. This matters for aging because your mental patterns directly affect your physiology. Chronic worry and negative thinking keep your stress response activated. Rumination about past regrets or future fears triggers the same cortisol release as actual present moment threats. Your body can't tell the difference between a real tiger chasing you and an imagined catastrophe you're spinning about in your mind. Either way, stress hormones flood your system, inflammation increases, and cellular aging accelerates. By using breath work to calm your mental patterns, you're not just feeling more peaceful. You're literally reducing the physiological damage caused by stress-based thinking. Your cells age slower when your mind is calmer. There's also something important about the content of your thoughts. Research shows that people who maintain a positive outlook and sense of purpose tend to live longer and stay healthier. But it's hard to maintain that outlook when your nervous system is dysregulated and your thoughts are dominated by worry and negativity. The breathing practice creates a foundation for more positive thinking. When your nervous system is calm, your brain naturally gravitates toward more balanced, constructive thoughts. Problems that seemed overwhelming when you were stressed become manageable challenges when you're calm. This isn't toxic positivity or pretending problems don't exist. It's about having the neurological capacity to think clearly about challenges instead of catastrophizing about them. That clearer thinking leads to better decisions, which leads to better outcomes, which reinforces positive thinking. It's an upward spiral instead of a downward one. The monks talked about this in terms of wisdom. They understood that wisdom isn't just about knowing things. It's about having a calm, clear mind that can see situations accurately and respond appropriately. Breathwork was one of their primary tools for cultivating that clarity. Let's discuss the morning practice specifically because how you start your day has enormous influence on how the entire day unfolds. Most people jolt awake to an alarm, immediately check their phone, and rush into the day already feeling behind and stressed. This sets a pattern that's hard to break. Imagine starting differently. Your alarm goes off, but instead of reaching for your phone, you sit up in bed and do your breathing practice. For minutes of 4-7-8 breathing before you've even thought about your to-do list or checked your messages. What this does is set your nervous system's baseline for the day. Instead of starting in stress mode, you're starting in recovery mode. Your body gets the message that there's no emergency, no reason to flood your system with stress hormones. You're approaching the day from a grounded, centered place. The practical effects of this are substantial. When you start your day calm, you make better decisions about everything that follows. You're more likely to eat a healthy breakfast instead of grabbing whatever's quickest. You're more patient with your family or roommates. You drive more safely. You respond to work challenges more skillfully. These might seem like small things, but they compound. Every decision you make either moves you toward health and longevity or away from it. Starting your day with breathwork tips the balance in favor of health-promoting choices throughout the day. There's also something powerful about doing the practice before you fully engage with the external world. In those first moments after waking, you're in a liminal state between sleep and full waking consciousness. Your brain is still producing alpha waves, the relaxed, creative brain state. Doing breath work in this state is particularly effective. You're working with your nervous system when it's most malleable, before the day's demands have pulled you into your typical stress patterns. It's like tuning an instrument before a performance. You're setting the tone before the music begins. Some people resist this because they value those first moments of checking messages or news. I understand the impulse, but consider what you're actually doing. You're immediately filling your mind with other people's priorities, problems, and agendas before you've even established your own center. What if instead, those first few minutes were about you establishing your state, your intention, your groundedness? Then when you do check messages or engage with the day's demands, you're doing it from a more resourced place. The evening practice serves a different but equally important function. While morning practice sets your baseline for the day, evening practice helps you discharge the accumulated stress and prepare for restorative sleep. Throughout the day, you accumulate tension, stress, and unprocessed emotion. Even on good days, there's residual activation in your nervous system from the day's activities. If you go straight from your day into bed without any transition, all that activation comes with you, making sleep difficult and less restorative. The evening breathing practice creates that transition. It signals to your body that the active phase of the day is over and it's time to shift into recovery mode. You're consciously releasing the day and preparing for rest. This is particularly important in our modern world where the boundaries between work and personal time have blurred. Many people check work emails right up until they try to sleep. Their brain never gets the signal that work is done, so their nervous system stays partially activated all night. Doing breath work before bed creates a clear boundary. It's a ritual that says, the day is over. Work is done. Now is time for rest. Your nervous system needs these clear signals to shift states appropriately. The breathing practice is more effective than many sleep hygiene recommendations because it's not just behavioral, it's physiological. You're not just avoiding blue light or keeping your bedroom cool. You're actively shifting your nervous system into the state that supports deep sleep. People who do evening breath work consistently report not just falling asleep faster, but sleeping more deeply and waking more refreshed. The quality of sleep improves because they re-entering sleep from a genuinely relaxed state rather than trying to force sleep while still physiologically activated. There's also a psychological component. The evening practice can become a time for processing the day, not analyzing or ruminating, but simply allowing whatever emotions or thoughts are present to surface and release with the breath. It's a gentle form of emotional hygiene that prevents stress and emotion from accumulating over time. The monks often practiced in the evening as a way of releasing the day before rest. They understood that carrying the day's concerns into sleep disrupted rest and spilled into the next day. Evening breath work was their way of creating closure and renewal. This daily cycle, morning practice to set your baseline, evening practice to release and restore, creates a rhythm that supports optimal functioning. You're working with your body's natural cycles rather than fighting against them.